You're listening to Cottontail's podcast, part of the Silicon Valley Black Project, which produced the documentary film A Place at the Table about the Black pioneers of Silicon Valley. A Place at the Table can be viewed for rent on Vimeo.com on demand /A Place at the Table STEM. Through Cottontail's podcast, the Silicon Valley Black Project will continue to recognize the contributions made by African Americans. We will be featuring African American professionals, technologists in the fields of engineering, administration, and entrepreneurial pursuits from the past and present.
Today, we are talking to Mr. Scott Taper. Scott talks about his technical expertise as a liaison between the universities and emerging industries in Silicon Valley. Scott held challenging positions that directed funds and technical advice to startups and scientific developers through contract negotiations, marketing, and industry research.
I was born in Pennsylvania, in a little town outside of Pittsburgh, a place called McKees Rocks. My father died when I was very young. I think I was about 2 years old. I have vague recollection of it. I grew up with a single parent, and she did a lot of things, that we are very proud of her for doing. Right? I had excelled in school, because she started me reading when I was about, I think about 3 years old. I'm not sure how old I was, but she said, "You got to learn how to read." And it kept me up all night teaching me how to read. So finally, I think my brain just clicked and said, "Better start reading." And so by the time I got to whatever grade I was going to, I knew how to read very, very well. When I finally moved to New Kensington permanently, that was in 1960. There, I excelled in school. First year of high school, I was approached by a social worker named Mrs. Mitchell, LaRue Mitchell. And Mrs. Mitchell said, "How would you like to apply to the ABC program?" I said, "What's that?" She said, it's really a better chance." And so I said, "What is it about?" She said, "Oh, they have a summer program." I said, "Oh, summer? Oh, good. I'll apply to that." So I took a test called the SSAT, Secondary School Admissions Test. And I scored in the high 1 or 2%, I forget. So I selected Honolulu in Hawaii, because I wanted to go to Hawaii. And I selected the Hill School in Virginia and the Hill School in Pottstown, Pennsylvania. That's how I ended up at the Hill School. But at the Hill School, they did something that I think every school should do. They should make every student participate in a sport every quarter, or go to the gym and exercise. For the first time ever, I was playing football. I actually made the basketball team. I actually ran track. Right? So I had, several scholarship offers. A lot of them are more academic than athletic, but I think they combined the two. I had like 111 scholarship offers, because I was also a national merit finalist. Because of my track ability, I was a sub-50 quarter miler, and I broad jumped 20-something feet, 22 feet, and I triple jumped. I still hold the school records there. My athletic director, he arranged for the coach there, the track coach there, James Company, to come and meet 3 of us, right? One was a guy named Theo Killian, who now sits on the board of the ABC program. And he had a very accomplished career in business, vice president in a lot of different places. Also, Bob Molino, who is now a retired physician living in Marin County, in California. Mm. When I went to Penn, I ran track my freshman year, but during that time, then we had the largest group of black people, the black freshman class ever at Penn, and still remains the largest group of black freshmen. Now, mind you, this was just after all the riots and things like that in Detroit. Anyway, we had this large class, and after we graduated in '74, that's when I wanted to work for a small black firm. I graduated in engineering, actually civil engineering from Penn, enabled me to end up working for a small black engineering firm in Philadelphia, which after 3 months, we didn't see eye to eye on a lot of things. And so I had a standing offer from General Electric because I had already visited California while I was working for them to explore whether California would be someplace I would like to live. And so when I had come out, I saw San Jose at that particular time, and there was nobody around. And I said, no, I don't think I want to come back. I ended up calling them and said, you guys still want me? They said, sure. And so that's how I ended up in California. And I was working for General Electric Fast Breeder Reactor Division of the nuclear part of General Electric.
Is it set in 1974?
Yeah, 1974.
Okay, so you were separate?
We were separate from the nuclear part because we were a special program that was initiated by the government to develop a new type of nuclear reactor that wouldn't produce that much or any waste material. Mm. Okay. But the fast breeding reactor actually creates its own fuel through a chain reaction that actually gets you right back to uranium-238 after several decays.
You'd think that would be the model that they would use because it doesn't create any waste. Why wouldn't they?
No, it doesn't, except for one thing. It was sodium cooled, right? Which meant that, it had molten salt as the coolant. And when molten sodium hits the air, it burns. Oh. So we had a lot of experiments that were going on at that time that I had to go down to San Jose where we were running the experiment. And so I had to go down there and just check on how they were going. And so I got into a lot of metallurgy. And after a while, I knew a lot about metallurgy and welding and everything else. There was a guy, he used to think he was a little bit of a professor. And so he would pull me aside at every chance he got and tell me, hey, come in here. I want to show you liquid presence charge. Come in here. I want to show you magnetic particle. These are all non-destructive testing methods, right? And he said, come in here. I want to show you radiation. And so, and hydrogen testing and so forth and so on. All these things were ways in which you could detect cracks in material or leaks. Okay. And so, anyhow, that knowledge that he gave me actually was instrumental.
Do you think he was trying to be a mentor to you in a very casual, roundabout way?
Yes, he was. Yes, he was. I had lots of friends. You may know them as Qs.
Yes.
Omega Psi-Phi brothers who were working over at Lockheed. And they said, hey, you ought to come over here and apply because we're looking for people, right? went over there and I applied, and I got a call back from this group. The operating part of is operations management part of Lockheed. Because of my knowledge of metallurgy that I gained at GE and the knowledge that John had actually given me, that was how I ended up getting the job. Back when I was at GE, when I was at the fast breeder reactor department, I had this manager named Bob Gluck. And Bob was a very accomplished engineer. He wanted me to have a management track, wanted to put me on the management track. So he said, look, you got to go get a master's. He said, an MBA would be nice. And so they arranged for me to go to Santa Clara to get my MBA on a reimbursement basis. And so all during that time I was at GE, I was working on my MBA. And then all during the time I was Lockheed, I was still working on it, but I was taking 2 courses at a time and skipping summers. So it took me a long time to get it.
Yeah.
After I got my MBA, I moved from there over to Lockheed's acquisition management, which is actually their business development part of the house for large-scale contracts. And I was in the advanced systems division, where I worked on things like the Star Wars project and mine countermeasures and a whole number of different things that, including the space shuttle tiles and things like that. So anyway, that was actually a very exciting time in my life, because while we were doing that, I was writing proposals. I learned everything about proposal writing at that particular time. It has changed quite a bit. A friend said, hey, why don't you come to the Electric Power Research Institute? That'll apply. I did, but I didn't have a resume, so I sent my paper resume that I wrote out longhand, and they typed it up for me and sent it back to me. Then I submitted it. Then that's how I got that job. But I got that job as a licensing analyst, which was in the patent administration office, in which we're looking at ways in which we could commercialize the technology that we had developed with all the money that we got from utilities. Upry was a company of project managers. So when I was there, I did a lot of licensing of technology, to everything from guide wires for turbines, a lot of software, and I helped them develop their software program there by teaching one of the guys who needed to learn about it. So I gave him the framework for developing prototype software and advancing it to distributable software. When I first got there, I handled all 6 divisions, from nuclear to the coal division, the consumer division. The thing is that we have both a conservation side and we have the demand side, right? We would help people conserve energy, but we also wanted to increase demand for electrical energy versus gas-powered energy. And that's why they re-outfitted the entire Safeway store in Menlo Park. It had gas refrigeration, and we changed it to electrical refrigeration. And we tested the technology, to show how efficient it was versus gas refrigeration. I worked on so many different things. I was there a total of 9 years, working on 1,700 projects at the same time, trying to develop a methodology for assessing the commercialization value of the different technologies versus whether we actually would expect anything out of it other than a publication.
Now, were you considered a team member, or were you leading up a team, or were you doing this as an individual contributor?
We had a small department. It was like myself and my manager.
Okay.
He was a lawyer who had a mathematics background, and had passed the patent bar. And he was also the secretary of the corporation because he had passed the California bar, but the general counsel had not. So he had to sign all the legal documents. And so my job really was to market our technologies and get them out there and show the advantages and disadvantages of our technologies over the existing profiles out there for different technologies. Mm-hmm. Most of this came from my experience at Lockheed, where we would actually show the advantages and disadvantages of the opponent's technology versus ours. So it was the same difference. Now, but my role as strictly a marketer changed to a negotiator very quickly. After going into several negotiation sessions, I said, I could do this. So I started negotiating some big deals, 20 man, 30 man. And I negotiated with, CEOs and, and chief engineers and lawyers, corporate lawyers from just about every company in the United States and a few abroad. So it was actually pretty exciting.
That was at the Electrical Power Research Institute that you were doing all of this work?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, it was fun. It was fun. Eventually, after I left EPRI after 9 years, and I went to UC Berkeley. Right. And I was there helping to start up their new technology licensing office. The University of California system is made up of now 10 campuses, including Merced. Mm-hmm. At that particular time, it was 9 campuses. And all the intellectual property was channeled through the central organization called the Patent and Trademark Office, PTO. And it was located at UC Berkeley. Right? Because I saw in the paper just how dismal their earnings were. I mean, they were making about $400,000 a year from 9 different campuses. And I called them up and said, hey, I can do better. Yeah. Of course, I didn't get much of a response back. So, but later on, that particular company, those individuals were actually let go. And another guy came in. His name was Carl. I had met him several times when I was working at Upper. He called me up and said, hey, would you like to be the associate director of this office? I'm like, really? So I went up there for an interview, and I found out just how much I didn't know. But then they had this guy who came in, very powerful guy, came in from this place called, it was a pharmaceutical company, I forget which. And he actually got the job and was very highly credentialed. So I didn't mind losing that one. Besides, I would have been younger than everybody else in that office.
Is that right? Is that right?
I had been working with Stanford Office of Technology with Niels Reimers back when I was at EPRI. Mm-hmm. And actually had helped them collect some royalties that we owed them for some software Office of Technology in Berkeley that they just opened up. Guess who was the temporary manager there? Niels Reimers. Okay. So he said, you're a strong candidate. We have these other people. We have a president and lawyers and a lot of other people are applying. But then he called me back and said, I think we ought to hire you. So that's what they did. So when I was at UC Berkeley, I was managing pretty much autonomously, which was the engineering group, College of Optometry. Mm-hmm. But occasionally they would have some cross technologies that we had to coordinate with the University of San Francisco. I worked with the people on top of the hill, Lawrence Berkeley Lab. Mm. We actually had to go up there and give them a lot of information about what we were doing so they could actually establish their own office. I brought them in into the loop of the it's a commercial company's invitational where they come in and they hear graduate students and the other researchers give talks about what they're working on in the hope that these companies would either hire them afterward or put more money into their research. And so there would be hundreds of companies up there. And so that was actually in one of those particular sessions we had, and we had a big luncheon. And at one of the luncheons, in comes the founder of Silicon Graphics. I was there when he announced that particular venture and said, I had partnered with Mark Anderson at the University of Illinois, who was well known to have started an internet browser that everybody was using, but the internet was so unorganized, you just got back a lot of stuff. They were eventually sued by the University of Illinois because they didn't like losing Mark Anderson. And second, they weren't going to let them use that name. And so they changed the name to Netscape. So he announced at that particular dinner that they were going to give away this Netscape browser, and it's going to be free. And all these engineers, PhDs, everybody in there went, how's he going to make money? I mean, you should hear it. It was like a big hum, just like a fog over the entire place. How are you going to make money? He said, oh, we'll make money. He said, it's going to be very lucrative. He was actually a big believer that the internet was the computer, which is the same thing that Larry Ellison believed. The internet is the computer. It just took a lot of years for people to finally figure out, oh, the internet is the computer. Right. And now you have software as a service. So, which kind of goes back to the old timeshare that Honeywell used to have, where you dial in and you use their big computer. Right? Well, now you're dialing into a system where it looks like it's on your laptop, but it's sitting on your shared space someplace. And I thought about it, and I said, I gotta wait and see what he's going to do, because I couldn't figure it out either.
Right.
So when I was at UC Berkeley, I got to know a lot of law firms in the area, and I was working with just about everybody. But basically at UC Berkeley, I launched a few companies. One of them was the first ever company launched down at UC Berkeley. It was based on MEMS technology. And I got them their first investor who was going to put in $500,000, and they refused it. They turned it down. So he joined the company. Wow. And the company was doing fine as long as they stayed with sensors, whatever. But they decided they were going to get into the semiconductor business and address the needs of the semiconductor industry. And of course, when the semiconductor industry gets a cough, all its suppliers get pneumonia. Right? So that's basically what happened to them. The last thing I heard from them was after I left UC Berkeley. I was at UC Berkeley a little over 5 years. I ended up working for SRI International in Menlo Park. I was a commercialization manager there, in charge of, just about everything. I had an office right on the first floor. They call it the corporate row when people would come in. Did a lot of work supporting contracts, negotiating the intellectual property portions of contracts, and taking the lead on some non-disclosure agreements and also material transfer agreements, things like that. I also spun out 5 companies there.
Hmm.
And we were featured in a Time magazine article one time, and I was not mentioned, but we were featured there as a spin-out city. And one of those companies I had spun out was a biotech company, which we were doing gene knockout and gene insertion using a RECA-mediated device, which we could actually snip and insert using a long chain of genes so that they actually will fall into the exact spot they should be in because of the matching of the rest of the chain, kind of like a key. Right? Yeah, RECA mediated homologous recombinant technology.
That was the name of the company, or that was a technique?
No, the name of the company was Energy.
Something on that order, right? Okay.
Yeah, it's something to Perigene, yeah.
Yeah.
And so for a while, after they were kind of like aimless, right? And we actually ended up doing a deal with the seed company, Pioneer Hybrid. That's the name of the company.
Pioneer
In
Hybrid.
fact, the Pioneer Hybrid, and we did the deal. That was just a field of use deal, so we could still go on and talk to the other biotech companies for other deals, such as xenotransplants. The company in Australia, Brestogen, was doing xenotechnology, where they would be able to change the physical makeup of the pig's DNA to mimic human DNA, so that you can make temporary transplants of pig organs into people waiting for organs, because pigs are very closely related to human anatomy. Okay.
You would think it would be more primal, from that family. No, huh? It's pigs.
No, pigs actually seem to be more compatible with humans and monkeys. Right.
Good to know. Good to know. So all this is going on. What was your social connections? How were they going in the valley? How was that happening for you? And what were you doing with them?
Well, when I first came out here, I didn't know anybody.
Okay.
But mainly through the Mega Sci-Fi fraternity, I got to know a lot more people. I met Sylvester, when I was pledging. Willie Bell. I don't know if you know Willie Bell. Willie Bell was a manager at Lockheed. Elmer Stovall. I met Kerry, when he was pledging, and then he and I became good friends. I met Bob Baldry, way before then, when he was actually working at Ford Motor Company, not Ford Motor, but Ford Aerospace, when he was a recruiter. Dwight Staten, because he tried to recruit me, and I ended up recruiting him to learn what he was doing with recruiting. And I met Johnny Hill back in probably, let's see, 1976, 77, I don't know. Yeah. Spencer Mills. After I left SRI, and that was the last company I spun out, was my own. And we spun out a company that was a rapid prototyping company based on technology that was developed at SRI for the space applications, and also shipboard applications and other potential consumer applications as a rapid manufacturing or anything like that. When Sylvester and I decided we were going to do this, we had that company in Fremont. And so we used that as our pitching. We already have a company, we just need money.
Yeah. What was the name of your spin-off company that you and Sylvester were doing?
Polymorph.
Polymorph. Okay.
Yeah, Polymorph Systems.
Is that the company that Sylvester ultimately ended up owning, or was it something that you guys attempted together? And
Well, Sylvester already owned his own company. Did a leveraged buyout of the company where he was a salesman,
right.
and he put in the most money, and that's how he became the president of Phase 3 Automation.
Mm-hmm. You know, it's rare for you to for anyone to have the inside look at companies and universities that you had. Most of us commoners, as I might call us, we just see these shining symbols of education and or technology and think, well, things are moving really smoothly in there, and people are really fantastic and wonderful. And then as I interview folks who are actually on the inside, it's amazing what goes on. Are you retired now, Scott, or are you still running a company? What are you doing?
I still have juice,
I'm sure you do. So, what is your juice?
So yeah, well, I still have my web page, and I still have my presence on Facebook. I get a lot of word of mouth.
So, you're still brokering deals and working with venture
Yeah,
capitalists on behalf of others or for yourself?
on behalf of others,
Okay.
like when I was at Epry and at SRI,
Mm-hmm.
you bide your time till you see something good. Don't jump at the first thing out of the gate.
Now, if you could look back at your early days, would you suspect that you would turn out or be involved in this type of business?
Didn't have any idea.
Had
Didn't
no
have
idea.
any idea. When I first got the idea, this is where I wanted to be.
Mm.
When I joined the Electric Power Research Institute.
Mm.
Right? So when I joined them, and I looked at what I was doing, I said, "Oh, this is kind of perfect." I said, "I want to be in business, but I want to stay technically juxtaposed. I want to have technology to be a large part of what I do because that's what I am." Right? I wish I had taken more finance classes. I consider myself a commercializer. Right?
Okay.
Like for instance, I work with a lot of individuals and small companies, and I look at what they're trying to do, and then I try to get them to ask, "What business are you in?"
Mm-hmm.
If they don't know what business they're in, they have to start thinking about it. I tell them, "Come back when you think you know what business you're in." And when they come back and they tell me, they go like, "Nope, that's not your business." I said, "But I'm not going to keep sending you back because here's where I think your business is." So I do things like that for clients. I do things like that for companies. Like for instance, I was consulting with Ocean Spray. I was consulting with them.
Mm-hmm.
They wanted to be able to use a product that was a spare product, but they wanted to come up with other uses for it, and they wanted to do clinical trials on it. And I did my research, and I said, "No, you don't want to do it. It's a Japanese patent for the same product, right? That they were imagining." I said, "What you need to do is get into the fast-growing probiotic industry, which is growing faster than any other industry in the world."
Mm-hmm.
So I found out more about cranberries than I ever wanted to know. Yeah, and that came as a recommendation through a friend of mine who I'd done work with.
Mm-hmm. So you're still pretty active though, huh?
Yeah, not so active lately. After UC Berkeley,
Yeah.
let's see, I went to SRI. From SRI, I started at the company with Sylvester,
Yeah.
and that failed. I went into consulting, and after the consulting, I let's see, I took a job with Kyocera Wireless in San Diego. I actually moved down there. I was a senior technology commercialization project manager.
Okay. San Diego.
And after 6 months of that, they ended up losing a lot of money. One of the companies was suing us. I said, "We got to make a counter offer. Let's merge with them." and let them go and sue everybody else but us.
Right.
Yeah, it's another thing I do. I write business plans too. So after about 2 or 3 of those, I said, "Oh my God."
Yeah, why?
Silicon Valley was full of young engineers back in the day,
Yeah.
during the dot-com.
Mm-hmm.
And I was getting silly stuff across my desk being proposed by outside companies when I was at SRI to help develop this for them through SRI resources, but they didn't want to pay any money.
Yeah.
Some of them were excellent ideas.
Well, you're the most knowledgeable guy around nowadays. How are you seeing the Valley going forward?
Well, right now, what is happening is that you have younger and younger people coming into the Valley.
Mm-hmm.
They're being paid a lot of money, but they don't have enough money to actually stay here on the long term. They can't afford housing. And if they can, they're going to have to live far away, unless they're subsidized by the companies. Many of them are not. I think with the new paradigm of being able to work remotely from anywhere, the companies are learning that they don't have to have all their employees here. So I think a lot of these younger people that used to work here are now going to go to places where they can actually afford, to work from home, and that's what they're going to do. They're going to move to cheaper areas, maybe back to their home states or warmer climates. So long as they got fast internet, they'll be happy.
Yeah, well, that's the key.
There's this investment going through Congress, which is talking about establishing more broadband access. When that gets through, I'll be writing a grant, and with enough people that are capable of doing it, I'd be writing to people, say, send me your resume so you want to be part of this.
So you're saying build your own?
Build your own. Or switch from Comcast to a satellite system. What they don't have out there is fiber.
Yes, you're right.
They're talking about they have gig networks, but they don't have the fiber.
With that, Mr. Taper, I am going to let you go. Okay?
Okay.
All right, Scott. Thank you so much.
All
I
right.
really appreciate your time and your stories, and we could talk forever. You know that.
Yeah, I know. I'm 69. I'm 69, so I got a lot of life behind me.
I know. I know. A lot of the people I've talked to, they'll start off by saying, "Well, I don't think I'm very interesting," and then we talk for 3 hours. So it's good, though. It's been good for me to reconnect with people, and I think our young people, black, white, whoever, need to hear our stories and need to know we were there and we were contributing in a very positive way.
Thank you, Scott, for sharing your journey. You exemplify the notion that there are many ways to be involved with high tech. There are companies that exist today because of your ability to position companies and investors in a way that would ensure their profitability. Thank you, Scott, and thank you for listening.